Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Dentzel Domain on Red State Talk Radio. I am your host, Ed Dentzel. It's Thursday. Hope everybody's having a great week. It's been beautiful here in Florida this week. I've gotten outside, continuing to practice for this tournament that I have next weekend, so 9 days from now. And today, this morning, I got the map of the courses over there. Over there in Daytona, they hold the tournaments on ball golf courses, so they're temporary. So they bring in temporary baskets, and the guys who run the club over there figure out, kind of a nice, unique course. Actually, there's two courses over there that we'll be playing at one location, Pelican Bay. And they try to vary it up from year to year. And so there's always a little bit of an anticipation of what they're going to do this year. And I've been playing that tournament since 2013. And it's going to be tough. They do a nice job. They really think out how to set these courses up. We play that the greens and the bunkers are out of bounds. And, of course, sidewalks, things like that are out of bounds. And we play more along the edges of the regular ball golf fairways instead of actually playing in the ball golf fairways. Because if it was just playing in the ball golf fairways, that's a little too easy for disc golf. So I got those this morning, and so I've took a quick look at them. And it's one of the only tournaments that it's that way. Most of the other ones we play on courses that are there all the time. Established courses, mostly in public parks, and people can go play them. But in Daytona, the last 4 years, they've had it on these temporary courses that they set up. And it's like a little surprise. It's like Christmas Day when you get what the course is going to look like on Facebook or wherever else they post it. So that's kind of cool, and I've been practicing. Let's get to the show. As I'm going to this recording, this active shooter situation at the Joint Base Andrews is just kind of winding down. It turned out that there was no active shooter. I guess what was confusing to me in reading the reports is that they were supposed to be having an active shooter training drill today. And then it's hard to determine right now if somebody got confused and thought it was real, or something else happened. Somebody in charge didn't let somebody else know in charge that they were just doing a drill today, not a real situation. I'm not sure. I'm not sure it's not funny, but it's just good that it wasn't real. Because as I was watching it happen online, I kind of got the feeling that if it was real, it wasn't a terrorist situation. It felt more to me like maybe some veteran PTSD showed up, and we know that those situations have happened. The amount of suicides and violence that some of our veterans hold within them from their combat experience, from what they saw in either Iraq and Afghanistan. We know that a lot of those men and women take it back home, and a lot of them deal with mental issues the rest of their lives. This is what it felt like when I was watching it, and then it turns out it wasn't real at all. In fact, at one point they said that somebody was barricaded on the third floor of one of the buildings, and I guess it wasn't true. And this was just I guess they have these drills because we know these things happen, whether it is somebody, a veteran with some mental issues, or it is a terrorist situation like Fort Hood. Military bases are now training for that. If this happens, this is what everybody is supposed to do. It's always weird to me to see, when these things have happened, that you see regular police officers who work out here in civilian life rushing on to military bases to find out what's going on. You'd think that military police and whoever else on the base would be the first responders, the people who take care of something like this. Of course, I'm sure they don't mind any backup. But with the situation we have in the United States where military members aren't allowed to carry their weapons when they're on the base, this makes it more probable that something like this can happen. This is why the Fort Hood shooter was so successful in what he did. And, of course, that was a terrorist attack, no matter what the Obama administration may say that it was workplace violence. It was a terrorist attack. And the reason it was successful is because military members aren't allowed to carry their weapons. I'm not saying they have to carry around their M16s with them, but they are issued sidearms. Not allowed to carry those either. It's a military base. So that's why they have to train like this, because most of the people at these locations are not armed. If everybody was armed, they wouldn't have to do these drills. It'd just be, okay, if something happens, somebody's going to pull out their gun and shoot the person. No drills are needed. You don't have to tell all these unarmed people where to go and what to do. You just shoot the guy and it's done. Remember, the reason we have fire drills in buildings, for example, if you're in a school that they have fire drills maybe once a month or anything, is because nobody carries a fire extinguisher around with them. Nobody in there is equipped to put out a fire. That's why they have fire drills. They have active shooter drills on military bases because nobody's allowed to carry a gun. Just have to think about it that way. So I'm glad there wasn't any danger at this base. And it seemed like much ado about nothing. I'm sure they'll try to figure out how these wires got crossed, the difference between a real situation and just a drill. But this is a story that's still developing as I begin to record this show. Going back to Turkey and what happened to at that airport a couple days ago. Turns out that the terrorists, there were 3 different ones, if you don't know, that blew themselves up. They were from Russia, Uzbekistan, and Kyrgyzstan. I don't even know how. Kyrgyzstan. If you have a good idea how to pronounce that, good for you. It's not Kurdistan, it's Kyrgyzstan or something like that. That's where these bombers were from. They were Muslim, of course. The leader that some other people have been rounded up in Turkey, I'm going to guess in the city where the airport is and maybe some others. At least 13 other people have been rounded up in connection with this terrorist attack at the Ataturk airport. The leader, though, is from Chechnya, and I don't believe that he has been caught yet. I don't think he was on location when this happened. And if you'll remember Chechnya, that's where even the sound of that word, even the sound of that, the name of that place, kind of sounds evil, doesn't it? Doesn't it? Chechen rebels, we've heard that saying before. In fact, I think that wasn't that, didn't Chechnya or Chechen rebels play a significant role in the movie Crimson Tide with Dentzel Washington and Gene Hackman? Maybe I'm just imagining that. But the leader is Chechen. They're going to go looking for him. It seems he's arranged other terrorist attacks in the past. He just hasn't been caught yet. But they were in contact with ISIS. This was an ISIS attack. However, it did not come from the Middle East. It didn't come necessarily from the territory that they control in Iraq and Syria and elsewhere. This came from the other side up to the north of Turkey. So that's interesting to me. And we'll see if they can track these people down. But once again, Muslims killing other Muslims. As I was noting yesterday, I told you that Turkey has another terrorist problem besides just ISIS wanting to blow stuff up in that country. I had mentioned yesterday that the Kurds, they have their problems with Turkey as well. And the group I was mentioning yesterday was the PKK, which is the Kurdistan Workers' Party. As you can imagine, it's somewhat of a socialist/communist organization. And they've been fighting for Kurd independence, and that's, if you remember from several months ago, there was a couple bombings, I think 2 bombings, and that was not ISIS. That was the PKK doing something. And so yesterday or 2 days ago, when I heard that the airport had been blown up, that there had been an attack, the airport technically hadn't been blown up, but there were attacks at the airport, my first thought that it was PKK again. Now, we now know that that wasn't the case. So we have ISIS attacking Turkey, attacking Muslims. They don't care if you're gay. They don't care if you're straight. They don't care if it's a military base. They don't care if it's just a Christmas party in San Bernardino, California. They'll kill gays, they'll kill Christians, they'll kill Muslims, they'll kill atheists, anything that they can do. Now, there's a companion piece to this, but it's not from ISIS. It's, remember Al-Qaeda? Remember when they were bad boys on the big bad boys on the street from 15 years ago, after September 11th? They have a magazine, which is still hard for me to imagine that. Is it a magazine that you subscribe to and it comes in the mail? I know that magazine subscription rates and publications continue to go down, down, down because of the internet. But when I hear that a terrorist group has a magazine, that's automatically what I think of. Or do you sign up online and you get it in your email box every month? It's just, as just your regular American, that is just amazing to me. But Al-Qaeda is saying that it's giving tips to ISIS. It's a bizarre world over there. The way they treat all of this stuff. As if they're talking about recipes. No, you shouldn't cook your chicken this way. This is the way you want to cook your chicken. Oh, no. That's not how you grill your steak. No. This is how you do it. And so, no. That's not how you commit terrorism. This is the correct way to do terrorism. Al-Qaeda is saying to ISIS, don't bomb these gay places. Don't bomb these nightclubs. You should strictly concentrate on white, heterosexual people in the United States because they're the ones with all the power. And in fact, it sounds to me when you read a couple of the articles from Fox News and elsewhere that the terrorists are mad. It's really bizarre. You just sit down and really think about it. Here we are in the United States. Let me explain it this way. In the United States here on the left, they're still trying to sell the idea that this terrorist attack, although it was a terrorist attack, it had everything to do with this terrorist being gay and him not being allowed to be an open gay Muslim man. They're trying to sell that. And ISIS, and it seems Al-Qaeda, are upset about that. For them, it's not enough that the deed gets done, that people get killed, and the attack is successful. I'm going to guess that they're pretty happy about 49 people dying, whether they're gay or straight or whatever. But they don't like it that some other reason is being given for the attack being done. They want everybody to know that this was just because we exist that they did this. They don't want some lefties in the United States covering up the reason. And it just also shows you how out of step the Democrats and liberals are in the United States. And it's also why I tried to tell all of you that it just didn't feel to me like this guy was gay. It felt to me like he was scoping the place out over an extended period of time. And then that gay guy did an interview saying he had a relationship. Totally not believable. But even a lot of conservatives fell for this guy might have been in the closet. I just never believed that for a second. But ISIS and Al-Qaeda, or ISIS in this case, is upset that it's not getting proper credit, and they want their props for pulling off this attack in the nightclub, and they're disgusted that liberals in the United States are trying to cover up the reason. Try to pick a side in that one as a conservative in the United States. But then Al-Qaeda comes along and say, well, you wouldn't have these problems if you just attacked white straight people. You got to attack the power structure. Those people, they were a minority. They were mostly Hispanic. A lot of them were homosexual, whether they were gay women or gay men. Those people, they don't have that much power in the United States. They aren't a majority. Homosexuals are just 5-6% of the population at the most. Hispanics make up, it's a growing percentage. I don't even know what it is, but it's more than black people now. But, you're attacking these minorities. They don't hold any of that much power in the United States. You got to go after the white people. That's what Al-Qaeda is telling ISIS. Why did you have one of your guys go to a gay club and do this? Why wasn't he going to a straight white club somewhere where everybody's last name was Smith and Jones and Williams or something like that? Although I guess those last names can be held by all sorts of different ethnicities. But you know what I mean. It's just funny how it's not funny. It's dark. There's people dead. But it's just darkly humorous how they talk about it as if they were talking about the weather. Right? So each terrorist group trying to give each other tips on how to get their message straight. And I also think Al-Qaeda, being that it's been covered up now, it's still out there. They're still fighting. They're still terrorists. They're still militant Muslims. They're still radical Muslims, whatever term you want to give them. But it seems like they're trying to get back into the forefront, trying to put themselves back on the map after ISIS has kind of outmarketed them the last, 4 years. It's like a battle between Coke and Pepsi, something like that. But it's just if you're part of Western culture, it's just so bizarre to read. And on top of it, there's actually a magazine where they talk about all this stuff. But moving on, I wanted to take care of some new business. You'll see that this report, talking about terrorism or a terrorist state or a country that promotes terrorism, if you noticed, a report was brought out yesterday, about this seizure of a couple of American ships that mistakenly, they're more like boats. There weren't that many men on them, but that mistakenly sailed into Iranian waters. Remember that happened back in January? And those pictures came out, all of them on their knees with their hands behind their head, and there was all this outrage all over the place, mostly on my side. And you'll remember that I wasn't technically as upset. It said how embarrassing it was for the United States for this to happen. This just shows you how far the United States has fallen, that something like this would happen. And I simply asked the question back then, what did you want these guys to do? It sounds like they were in the wrong. They were doing something that they shouldn't be doing. And guess what? The report that comes out today, or maybe it came out yesterday, says exactly that. The report says that these men suffered from weak leadership, bad judgment, horrible war-fighting skills, and toughness. Before they even left their base, wherever that was, they were unprepared. They shouldn't have been going out into the Persian Gulf in the first place. So it's no wonder then that they got lost. They had a boat that stalled. It drifted into Iranian waters. The other one goes in there. They didn't even know that they were in Iranian waters. With all the GPS and everything we have these days, according to this report, they saw lights off in the distance. They thought it was Saudi Arabia when it was actually Iran. Now, to me, reading this report doesn't surprise me at all. I kind of suspected that at the time. But once again, I go back to, what did you want these guys to do? As the Iranian ships started pulling up, did you want them to start shooting? When we now know that the Americans were in Iranian waters. Now, don't give me the stuff about, well, the Iranians shouldn't do that, they shouldn't have done this. That's who Iran is. That's why you don't go into their waters unless you're actually trying to do something where you're ready to fire weapons. You go into their waters, good luck. Good luck. And I realize that it sucks that these pictures were taken and everything. This is why, exactly why, these sailors should have been more diligent in not going in there, because you know what's going to happen. And in this report, they do note that Iran did some things wrong. Yeah, but that's Iran. Does that really count? They said that, well, Iran shouldn't have taken those sailors into custody, and they should have allowed free pass for them. It was obvious that there was something wrong with the boat, and it was obvious that the sailors really didn't want to be there. Who are we talking? Are we talking about Switzerland? Are we talking about France? Are we talking about our allies like the Japanese or something? No. We're talking about Iran, one of the biggest terrorist backers in the world, that's trying to get nuclear weapons, that it seems like we're going to help them to do that, that would love to blow off any American's head anytime they could. It's a miracle that only this happened. Don't you people understand that? That these sailors, they were held for a while, they were let go. They might have been afraid. They might have been psychologically manipulated. To my knowledge, none of them were tortured. There were no bamboos under the fingernails. I'm sure it was very, very scary for all of them. But they're back in one piece now. And even so, you should know, for all of you who wanted to protect and defend these guys and what happened to them, there were 10 of them, if you don't know. There were 10. 6 officers and 3 sailors are being disciplined for what happened in that. They're not giving them medals. They're disciplining them. I think that when we, as conservatives, because I don't remember there being a ton of liberal outrage when this happened. And maybe that should just be expected. But are we this touchy? It's no different than, what would be a good example? For example, as a writer, I have my books on Amazon now. Put them back up there. You get reviews, you get good reviews, you get bad reviews. You have a podcast, you have good reviews, you get bad reviews. Way it goes. Sucks. You know, we all wish that we'd all get 5-star reviews and our books would sell and everybody loves them. That's not the way it goes. Some people just give bad reviews because they want to give bad reviews. But the last thing you should do as a writer, as a podcaster, as any sort of person where you're getting reviewed, is try to get into some argument with the person who's reviewing you. Do not let them show you that your skin is that thin. and that you have to protect your ego that much. This is when there was conservative outrage when this happened in January. It kind of feels like that. It kind of feels like that. We are so worried about how the United States, we're the ones, I thought, that said we don't care how the rest of the world views us. We're going to do what's right, and that's it. Suddenly, we're worried about what Iran thinks about us. We're worried that Iran doesn't respect us. And we're using as proof 10 sailors who sail into Iranian waters, not necessarily on purpose, by accident, but because they didn't know what the heck they were doing. And we're going to defend them, and we're going to attack Iran when they take those sailors into custody. I don't get it. I don't like it. I don't like what they did to the sailors, but it's Iran. We see that as a slight, what Iran did as a slight toward us. Well, if Ronald Reagan was president, they wouldn't have done that. I'd like to think that if Ronald Reagan was president, that our military wouldn't be sailing into foreign waters by mistake and not knowing where they were. I realize that we treat situations like that different. I realize that these Russian fighters that have buzzed American ships and Russian bombers that have strayed into European airspace and they get escorted out. I realize that we treat these situations differently. We are much nicer about it. When was the last time that some foreign ship sailed into American waters and we shot at it? Really? Moreover, when was the last time a foreign ship, an enemy ship, strayed into American waters by accident because they had mechanical issues? I'm going to say it probably has happened. I just can't think of one off the top of my head. Now, why is it that's happening with the American Navy that's supposed to be the number one Navy in the history of the world? Those are the questions we should be asking. But maybe that takes a little bit too much of a self-examination. Instead, we'll just get mad at Iran for what they did to our sailors. The way I think about Iran, I'm just happy they didn't shoot all of them. That they just held them for however long it wasn't more than a few days. That they only held them for that amount of time and gave them back should be a sign that they do respect us. Because it's safe to say if it would have been some lesser nation, who knows what would have happened to those sailors. Maybe we should think about it that way. Because this report does not portray these guys in the most glowing of terms. It wasn't like this was war. It wasn't like John McCain flying up there over North Vietnam and getting shot down and being in the Hanoi Hilton for 5 years. They were at war, and he had a mission to do, and he was supposed to fly into North Vietnamese airspace knowing the dangers. He didn't just stray in there by accident. And those men who were brave enough to do that stuff, they should get all of our defense for the rest of their lifetimes and continuing onward after that. But I'm not going to get crazy about a bunch of sailors who obviously didn't know what the heck they were doing. And frankly, it doesn't even seem like they cared. I mean, you have a very simple job in the Persian Gulf. Don't sail into Iranian waters. You can go into Iraq waters. You can go into Saudi Arabian waters and any other country that borders the Persian Gulf. Don't go into Iranian waters, and that's what they did. So, I tried to tell you this back in January, that I thought that this was a situation where we as conservatives were blowing it totally out of proportion. Why not look at the positives from this instead of the negatives and why we're so thin-skinned? And in the end, it's these sailors who are going to be disciplined for what happened. Even though I know Iran did some wrong things, that's what Iran does. Maybe our sailors should just be a little better. How about that? Let's go to the break. You've been listening to the Dentzel Domain on Red State Talk Radio.
The voice of American conservatism. WRS Digital, Red State Talk Radio.
And we're back at the Dentzel Domain on Red State Talk Radio. Let's move on to something else. We had this Supreme Court ruling, 5-3. There was a Texas abortion law. I should say it's a pro-life law that was struck down by the Supreme Court in a 5-3 ruling. And it's a 5-3 ruling because a new Supreme Court justice has not been appointed or approved by the Senate. And it doesn't look to me like the Senate is going to hold any hearings on who is Merrick Garland before the end of Barack Obama's term, which happens, technically his term doesn't end until January next year, even though the election is November. A lot of outrage about this. I'm not pleased with it either. But looking at how it broke down, even if Justice Scalia was still alive, this is the way the decision would have gone. It was 5-3 with Anthony Kennedy going with the more liberal justices in this case. You know the way you know that I'm a pro-life guy. We don't talk a lot about abortion on this show. There are blogs and Twitter accounts that is their prime. They cover news all over the United States and elsewhere about abortion and the law and people's changing opinions, and it's special interest groups regarding that. I don't talk about it a lot on this show because it doesn't come up a lot. In fact, the only reason usually abortion comes up as a topic, because this is a news. This show I consider to be news in that I cover recent events. Once in a while, you'll know that I get into overriding themes of conservatism outside of just what's happening in the news. But really, I do the show by just looking at what's in the news every day. Whereas there are shows that are just about guns, period. Just about guns, about gun ownership, and shows that just talk that topic to death. Once again, with abortion, there are shows that are nothing about economics. This isn't that type of show. It's a little mixture of everything. Of course, I'm pro-life, but you know when it has come up that I see abortion as kind of a trench warfare topic. The truth is, over the last 40 years since Roe versus Wade, where you could draw that line is when abortion became the law, it could be done, and more so it became socially acceptable, happened in the early 1970s. And we know how many babies have been killed since then, and it all sucks. However, that is the law, and conservatives and pro-life people have been fighting against that ever since. But like I said, pretty much it's been trench warfare. You gain 100 yards, you fall back 100 yards. You gain 200 yards, you fall back 200 yards. And this is the way. I don't see that ever changing. There are reasons on both sides that people, should I say it this way, like this topic so much. There are people on the left or who are pro-choice. Remember, we have a lot of pro-choice Republicans too, who are otherwise probably conservative on other topics. What is it? Economically conservative, socially liberal. There are quite a few people out there like that. But this is going to be something that the only way it's ever going to change, and if the pro-life movement is ever going to get a lasting win, where what I mean is they win and they don't have to give up that ground somewhere down the road, is you have to change people's minds. It's not enough, I'm not so sure, with a law. There was what was it, from a couple months ago, Donald Trump said that, was it him that said that if abortion was against the law, there should be a penalty against these women who try to get it done? Remember that? It was a controversy at the time. Yeah, that's stupid. I think that when we as pro-life people, we start thinking about pro-life laws, we're more concerned about the medical people who want to do this, who make money from this, than the women who are in difficult situations and maybe aren't making the best decisions for them, for their baby, and then they're being convinced to do something just because that doctor, that abortion clinic once paid. There's a concern on the right, on the pro-life people, that is going on. But I don't know how that's ever going to change anytime soon. I don't know. I think laws would keep a lot of doctors and medical people from being involved in it, but it surely wouldn't keep all. This is a subject that the only way it's going to change is when people's opinions change. And I just don't see that happening anytime soon. It's been 40 years. Granted, that's not a long time compared to how old the United States is, and it's nothing compared to how long humans have been on this earth. But abortions didn't just start in the 1970s. They've been going on all over the world for centuries. It's something that's accepted. I think it's morally wrong, but other people don't. And that's why it's a trench warfare topic. And that's why you get one ruling that's this way for us, and then the next ruling's against us. And in this particular time, we lost. And there's a lot of good articles, more in-depth articles by people who cover abortion and pro-life issues all the time that you can go check that out. But I just wanted to give my opinion on it. As I've told you, if my life would have gone just a little bit differently, if you don't know, I'm adopted. And if my biological mother had been another different type of person, I could have been aborted, given kind of my situation. So the pro-life causes and pro-life message and argument is very important to me personally. But that doesn't change my mind that it's just a grind. It's a fight worth putting up with. Because I know that if we weren't pro-life people, if we weren't fighting like we do, and there's people fighting a lot harder than I am, admittedly, that pro-choice would be all over the United States, and there would be even more abortions going on. And I think the left feels the same way. If there wasn't a pro-choice, pro-abortion, pro-killing babies movement in this country, then pro-life would completely cover the entire United States. And there would be a lot less abortions. And that's why we meet somewhere in the middle. And from generation for generation, the pro-life, take these polls. How many people are pro-life? A little over majority. Next year, the pro-choice people have a majority. The next year after that, the pro-life people have a majority. Now, I know that personally, and this is where I think we as conservatives have not done a good enough job making this argument, that personally, I think even a lot of pro-choice people and women would not have abortions. That's what I believe. I think they like it as a concept. I think they like it as the defense of one's own body, which we have a right to do with our body whatever we want, which is completely a fallacy that I'm not going to get into in this show. But that's the point I think that and granted, it's a typical liberal position in that they want something to happen, but they'd never think about doing it. On the other hand, they want taxes raised, but they don't want to pay those high taxes. They want more regulation, more environmentalism, but they want to try to avoid it themselves. This is who liberals are. And likewise with abortion, you have a lot of liberal women out there who say they're pro-choice, but if you ask them, well, would you have ever aborted any of your children, they'd say, hell no. I just don't think that we've worked on those issues. Well, why not? Why wouldn't you? Well, my sons and my daughters are great. They're the most important thing about my life. Well, what about, couldn't those aborted babies been the same way for those parents? Couldn't they have been? I realize maybe you were afraid. You found out that you were pregnant and it wasn't planned, or it was a complete surprise. There might have been a few days there you were questioning yourself whether you really wanted to do this or not, and you made the decision that you did. Well, those people made the decision that they didn't want to. How is one decision any better than the other? You love your decision. They allegedly love their decision. Why are you so quick to, you say these are the most important things in your life? Well, did they just abort the most important things in their life? Because I'm sure that if you ask them, a woman who's had an abortion about getting her abortion, she's not going to say that was the most important thing in my life. It was just something she did. Whereas the women who have kids, who chose to keep their kids, those kids are the most precious things on earth to them. Whereas it's weird that women who get abortions, I doubt that they'd say that their abortion was the best thing that ever happened to them. So the pro-choice and pro-life issues are not equal. And I just don't think that we as conservatives have worked on that angle enough. I think there's something there, and I hope I'm explaining it well. But we lose this time 5-3, but we just have to keep in mind, even if Justice Scalia was alive, we still would have lost. And I know that there is hope out there that if Trump were to become president, that he would pick some Supreme Court justice that might put the court back at kind of a level stance. I have no hope of that. And that's maybe a totally other different position. But I know that there are Trump supporters out there who are pointing at this abortion decision and saying, see, when Donald Trump becomes president, that's going to change. We're going to get more conservative decisions coming out of the court. And see, if you allow Hillary Clinton to get elected, you're going to get more decisions like that. Well, I just have no faith that Donald Trump is pro-life at all. And so I can't believe that he'd pick some justice who was pro-life as well. Simple as that. But we lost on this one. Don't be too dejected about this. There are many more battles to be held. I saw this story out of the Federalist, and I think it's appropriate because when the Orlando attack happened, how long has it been now? Almost 2 weeks, almost 3 weeks. I said it, I've been saying it almost every day since, that had some of the nightclub goers been allowed to carry weapons, that the shooting wouldn't have been bad. It wouldn't have been as bad as it was. Well, now we have evidence of that in South Carolina. Did you hear this story? Like I said, it's from the Federalist. On was it Sunday morning? Maybe it was Sunday night. Some nightclub open on a Sunday night. But it was on Sunday, so 5 days ago. Some guy showed up at a club. Something happened. He had a gun. It wasn't a terrorist. Sounds like there was some sort of regular kind of domestic argument. Maybe a guy with his girlfriend, or two guys getting into it. Guy had a gun, pulled it out, bad guy, started shooting at people, and guess what happened? Guess. Maybe you've heard about this story already, and you already know what happened. There was a good guy there who also had a gun. Not a policeman, not a security guard, not an off-duty cop. Just a regular civilian. Could have been an accountant, an engineer, a teacher, who knows. But he was there, was carrying his gun concealed lawfully, got out his gun and shot this guy, shot this bad guy. And the shooting stopped right there. Didn't kill him. I don't know if he meant to kill him or not, but shot him in the leg, shot him just enough that the guy couldn't shoot his gun. The bad guy couldn't shoot his gun anymore. This is what I'm talking about. Just something as simple as that. Now, all we're doing is, luckily, nobody was killed here. I think there were 4 people who were injured. But the reason there were only 4 people injured is because the bad guy got shot before he could injure or kill any more people. Good guys with guns stop bad guys with guns. And I'm sure that we on the right, and we're right for doing this, more stories like this are going to start popping up. With civilians, whether the bad guy's a terrorist or not, we're going to start seeing what good people can do with lawfully owned guns, lawfully carrying them. Guns can be a good thing in the hands of a good person. So I don't want to hear anything. I don't want to hear it anymore about how my ideas are crazy. Because I think even though nightclubs have never been my thing, and dance music has never been my thing, and standing along a velvet rope waiting to get inside a building has never been my thing, I still realize that a lot of good people take an interest in that. And if those are good people, they just like to have a couple drinks, watch some hot women watch some hot guys, whatever. They like the music. I don't particularly care for that music. Maybe that's part of the reason. But I realize they're good people, and because they're good people, they should be able to defend themselves. We shouldn't automatically dismiss them because of where they're going, or what the building is, or what the music is, or because of there's alcohol being served. That is all insane. And this proves it. Nightclub, good guy shoots bad guy, shooting is over, everybody gets to walk away. Granted, maybe some of them are going to have lasting injuries, and that sucks, but it could have been a lot worse. By the time the cops, we might have had 2 or 3 people dead, and even more people injured. So whoever that good guy shooter was, you have all the respect in the world, and you have to realize that nobody knows how they're going to react when that happens. As you know, I'm a gun owner now. I've talked about that at long lengths for the last 5 months. You never know, though, how you can go to the range, you can shoot, you can practice, you can figure out the trigger on your gun and the sights, and shoot at 20 feet and 25 feet, 30 feet, and carry your weapon. But when you start hearing the shots go off, nobody knows how they're going to react. Now, maybe if you have combat experience, maybe if you're a former veteran from Iraq, Afghanistan, or even Vietnam, first Iraq War, then hearing bullets flying in a public situation, you may be used to that. Maybe. But most American civilians are not. And so the only time they usually hear gunshots is at the range or if they go hunting during hunting season, hunting deer or whatever else. Otherwise, if you're in the middle of a city and you hear gunshots, it's pretty rare, and most people are going to go like, dang, I better start running. So you never know how you're going to react. You just don't know. I don't know if I'm put in that situation how I'm going to react. Nobody can predict that. But this guy here in South Carolina kept his wits about him and shot this guy. And that's more of what we need in the United States. So I don't want to hear it anymore. I don't want to hear that people shouldn't be able to take their guns wherever they go, even if it's a nightclub. I don't want to hear that. Speaking of guns, and this I think is how we're going to finish the show tonight. The Paris attack, remember that back in November? Or was it late October, early November? I forget the exact date, but it was the last couple months of last year. Would you believe this is amazing? Maybe it's not. Maybe I shouldn't be surprised. Maybe I should be surprised. I am surprised. Maybe I shouldn't be. They discovered that one of the guns used, this is from Judicial Watch, by the way. One of the guns used in the Paris attacks, so that's the attack where the Bataclan, there was the bomb that was exploded at the soccer game, and those guys running down the streets and shooting people at cafes at night in Paris. And we saw the videos from that. One of those guns is actually from the Fast and Furious debacle that the Obama administration perpetrated in 2009 into 2010. Can you believe that? They figured out that the gun was purchased from illegally, but the ATF let it happen. This is the whole thing behind this Fast and Furious case that I told you nobody's ever going to go to jail for. But it was purchased illegally from a gun dealer in Phoenix, Arizona. The ATF let it happen because allegedly they were going to follow where these guns go to try to figure out where these people are. These bad guys are, but they didn't do that. They just lost track of them, so the guns just went off into the hinterlands. And that gun found its way from the United States, I'm guessing, into Mexico. And then 5-6 years later, it shows up on the streets of Paris. So at some point, it was in a cargo ship, I'm going to guess, going across the Atlantic. Or it was in a cargo plane. Somehow it got transported from Arizona to France. I don't know. We've talked about how there have been crimes committed in the United States because of these guns. We know about the border agent that was killed with one of them. Was his name Brian Terry that was murdered with one of them? We now know that these drug gangs in Mexico have these guns and continue to use them. I don't know if anybody ever predicted that one would get into terrorist hands and be used in a terrorist attack in Paris. But it just shows you, what it should show us as pro-gun people is that these terrorists are using guns that are gotten through illegal means. And that's the point we try to keep telling liberals, but they don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear it. Now, we even know that even in the case of the Orlando attack, the guy's investigated and they still don't take his guns away. They suspect him of terrorism and can't even take his guns just for the short term. FBI didn't do that. Amazing. I don't know if anybody could predicted that, but it's true now. We now know. One of the guns used in the Paris attacks is from the Fast and Furious debacle, and nobody is ever going to pay for it. And we just have to live with it. Sucks. But I got to go. EdwardDentzel.com is where you can find all of my old Red State Talk Radio shows. You can also find them at Podbean, Podomatic, SoundCloud, and YouTube. Find me on Facebook. Find me on LinkedIn. Email me, edwarddentzel@reagan.com. Twitter, Dentzel Domain, all one word, no space in between. My other show that's doing gangbusters, America's Missing Podcast, with my co-host and friend, Melissa Bridges. Going to have another new episode for you coming out Sunday or Monday, but you can hear our last episode that will play this coming weekend on Red State Talk Radio. Is there anything else I got? You can find my books on Amazon, and I got to go. You've been listening to The Dentzel Domain on Red State Talk Radio. Good night.